Martha Patterson is a 31-year teaching veteran. She currently teaches special education in the resource room in the Central Kitsap District. She's a member of both the NEA and WA Board of Directors and represents WA Olympic on the WEPAC board. She is WA Olympic's Vice President, serves on CKEA's Executive Board, and lives in Silverdale with her family. Her career as a political activist began when she volunteered at the 1984 Democratic Convention, where she had the good fortune of meeting many political icons, including Coretta Scott King and her children. Please give it up for Martha Patterson.
Good morning, social justice warriors. I am honored to speak to you today on a day that celebrates one of my heroes, Dr. Martin Luther King. I was born the year Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. 23 years later, the first year of my teaching career, I marched down Market Street in San Francisco with thousands of others celebrating the Martin Luther King national holiday. I grew up in an environment that can best be described as one of white privilege. I had a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked in middle management. I was one of 5 kids. And I did not know at the time what a utopia I lived in. Every year, several graduates of my high school were Ivy League or Stanford bound. The majority of the graduates from my high school attended state colleges and universities. This was in the era that California colleges and universities were free. Throughout high school, I remember feeling not very smart, even though I had to be average, and poor because my family did not have a vacation home in Tahoe. One of the greatest gifts my parents gave me was taking my siblings and I to church in inner city Oakland, where we worshiped in a multicultural, multi-ethnic congregation, and where I slowly began to realize what white privilege was all about, even though it didn't have a name at the time. I knew I needed to leave my hometown when in the spring of my senior year, an invitational track meet was held at my school with dozens of athletes from across the Bay Area attending. I was disgusted by the terms that I heard coming out of the mouths of some of my classmates who felt a bit uncomfortable by the presence of students who did not look like them. A few years later, when I decided to become an educator, I made the decision to work in communities as different as the one I grew up in as possible, and it has been a pledge I have kept to this day. The Civil Rights Act, the Brown versus Board of Education, IDEA, and ESSA all were written to provide all students with a free and appropriate, equitable education regardless of their zip code. The sad fact is that our country and state has yet been able or willing to deliver on this promise. Like Dr. King, I too have a dream of educational justice when all students in our country have the opportunity and access to a solid public education. There will be justice in our schools when all school buildings are appropriately heated and ventilated, cared for and maintained with clean air and drinking water. There will be justice in our schools when all educators from preschool to our higher education colleagues in community and technical colleges will have the right to collectively bargain and earn a living wage. There will be justice in our schools when all students have access to the same enrichment programs, academic or extracurricular, regardless of whether a parent has a car and can pick them up after school. There will be justice in our schools when any student in our state who wants to go to college will, regardless of their family's personal income. There will be justice in our schools when all special ed classrooms at all levels are richly funded and fully staffed with appropriate service models that meet the specific needs of all students, not a program that is built on the backs of already overburdened teachers, where our neediest of students are diapered and tube-fed in a storage closet, and reading instruction takes place at a table underneath a stairwell. There will be justice in our schools when students and educators of all ages, races, and gender will walk into safe schools every day without fears of bullying, violence, or harassment. There will be justice in our schools when invasive standardized testing is no longer the answer to accountability, and we can return to the days of teaching the whole child, including the arts, career and vocational education, and humanities. There will be justice in our schools when school libraries are full of books that reflect and celebrate the diversity of our students. There will be justice in our schools when the Department of Education is actually led by an experienced educator who does not look at public education as a profit-making enterprise and has actually attended a public school themselves. Are you ready to bend the moral arc? Are you ready to educate members of your community on the morality of funding education? We all have a role to play in improving education in our state and country. Can you attend a school board meeting? Can you speak at a school board meeting? Can you speak at a PTA meeting? We are stronger together working towards a common goal. Attending a meeting may seem a small act, but in the words of Martin Luther King, if I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. Will it be easy? Of course not. But in the words of Shirley Chisholm, you don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. Educational justice and solid public schools are the birthright of all our students. From Wenatchee to Walla Walla, from Prosser to Port Townsend, from Bellevue to Bremerton, from Granite Falls to Grandview. Be present, engage, persist, keep at it. Be the change you wish to see the world. Let's bend the arc of the moral universe.